Folks, so welcome back. This is an activity, a mathematics activity I wanted to share with you all. I will note that hopefully you saw the other couple of videos I did that really preempt this one and talk about some more foundational mathematical approaches with your children at home. I say that because this involves cards with dots to represent quantity, and as I explained in the other videos, there are some other ways to familiarize your children with the concept of quantity that are more concrete and relevant to their everyday environment. That being said, once that is established and you feel like their basic counting and organic environment quantity sense is strong, this is a great activity just to hone and practice those skills. So on the one hand, there are some magnetic letters, magnetic numbers, which are just good representation for the symbol for quantity or number. And then there are some domino cards here. You'll notice these look just like, some dice face cards. And you'll notice these look just like the dice you could buy at a store. In fact, there are some variations on these activities that involve dice that your children would probably enjoy. But that being said, these are very basic visual representations. So you can actually make these at your house with a Sharpie and a blank piece of paper. You don't need fancy cards like this to do this activity. However, for some that will have these cards already, we'll just use these cards to demonstrate. So for those of you who are receiving these cards or these sheets at home, you'll notice they do need to be cut out. If your children have safety scissors and the capacity to practice their cutting, this is a great fine motor skill practice. So you can have them cut these out. Otherwise, obviously, if you don't have the right equipment or materials, then or your children are not quite there yet, then just go ahead and cut these out in advance for this activity. I'll talk a little bit about it while I'm finishing cutting it up. Basically, the idea here is for them to exercise what they know. Well, there are actually a couple approaches here. It's to exercise their counting skills and then to pair the quantity that they discover with the visual symbol or the number, the numeral that they associate with that quantity for accuracy. And this activity, of course, particularly early on, should be supervised. You want to be monitoring to make sure, just like I said in the previous videos, you want to be monitoring to make sure that their counting is accurate and that they're using a method that is going to ensure them the most success in coming up with the correct answer, and also just being accurate and not getting confused around the idea of mathematics. So we now have the quantity cards here, or the dot cards as I call them, and we have the magnetic numbers. And so this is actually the demonstration of the activity is really the simplest part. So I'll go ahead and just get these lined up for you. And in following the concept of most simple to most complex, I would recommend, and I'm only going to demonstrate here with a few of the cards, you want to start with a smaller group of these cards, and as that becomes too easy, you can expand to more complicated quantities using the remainder of the cards. Okay, now what I would first do before you start with your child as well, as a means to create what we call a control of error, is to just turn the card over and write the numeral on the back. Oops, hard for me to write upside down here. This marker's getting a little bit light on me, but so obviously you'd want to use a marker where it's nice and clear what the numeral is you've drawn. hopefully this will show up on the video. Okay, and then the activity is actually really simple. What you do is, and again, you want to first introduce this to your child, then you want to go ahead and have them practice with you, and then you'll expand to having them demonstrated for you with fading support. And the idea the general idea is to have them over time be able to match the numeral with the quantity. So there are no dots here, that gets a 0. Again, 1, so then they would fish through and find the 1, the digit 1, go ahead and put that, the numeral 1, to match the card. The same thing with 2, and so on. You can vary this so that you only have one card at a time, and so that these are in a pile. All the numerals are in a pile in front of your child. And so you could, sort of like flashcards essentially, you would say to them, tell me what this quantity is. And they would count them, or eventually, as they have learned, as these quantities become very familiar, particularly the smallest, something that we call, they'll be able simply to name the quantity. And then once they name it, they can find the numeral here that goes with it, put that in front of you or hold it up for you. They'll say it's 3. And then you can turn it around and show them that they are correct or not. So that is the most basic way. In the long run, you can have them also line up the quantities in correct ascending order, and then you can have them put the correct numeral with each one, corresponding card. There are a few ways to extend this activity, but generally that's the idea. Again, you'll want to use more organic materials first around the house, but then this is a great and quick practice for them. And then eventually when they become pretty good at it and you start to use the larger cards, you could actually hand it to them just as a refresher or as a daily activity and say, okay, go ahead and set up the cards, get them organized, match the numeral, and then I'll come and check on your progress. So it's useful. It gives them a little time to work independently at some point, and then you can check their progress and support as needed. If you have any questions, please go ahead and reach out. I'm happy to clarify. Thanks again.